Sonic the Hedgehog 3 has a fantastic opening. But there's a lot of things that strike me as odd about the opening in retrospect, and all of them have to do with Knuckles. First of all, Knuckles' theme tune was changed when Sonic & Knuckles released a few months after Sonic 3. If you play Sonic 3 and Knuckles together using the power of lock-on technology, you might even forget that his original theme exists. The drum beat in the original matches that of Blood on the Dance Floor, a Michael Jackson song released in 1997, but first created prior to the 91 release of Jackson's album Dangerous. The Sonic 3 composition is credited to Brad Buxer, who worked closely with Jackson in the 1990s and was part of Michael Jackson's team that worked on the Sonic 3 soundtrack. The theme was probably replaced due to it being a creation of Jackson's team. Knuckles' original theme gives him a distinctly 1990s hip-hop persona, while his Sonic & Knuckles theme gives a more tribal sound to Knuckles' character. But there's more than just the music. I can't help but notice Knuckles looks ever so slightly different than he usually does. When Sonic & Knuckles released in October 94, the marketing campaign hinged on the dramatic contrast between Knuckles' deep red fur and Sonic's blue fur. Boot up Sonic & Knuckles and you'll also notice Knuckles has green socks. The red fur and green socks is a look that Knuckles has retained for nearly 30 years now. Sega did a great job gaslighting us because for a few months in 94 between the release of Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles, Knuckles was a pink-furred, yellow sock-wearing echidna. My question is, why? The socks, as it turns out, are fairly easy to explain. Knuckles was never designed to have yellow socks, his socks were meant to be green all along. But, when appearing in cutscenes alongside Sonic in Sonic 3 and in Sonic & Knuckles, this aspect of his design couldn't be accommodated. The game retains a couple of different colour palettes in memory that it uses to colour every on-screen object. Colour palette line 0, which you can see here, is used by Sonic, Tails, title cards, small animals, and a handful of other in-game objects. Colour palette line 1 is used by enemies, rings, and the HUD. When the player chooses to play as Knuckles, palette line 0 can be swapped out to accommodate Knuckles' entirely different palette of colours. When Sonic and Knuckles both appear on the screen at the same time, however, this isn't really possible. Knuckles' colours can't just overwrite Sonic's in palette line 0. The developer's solution to this problem was to try to replace some unused colours in palette line 1 to swap in Knuckles' colours instead. The only issue with this approach is porting Knuckles' colours to line 1 results in this vibrant yellow, which is used by the HUD, being replaced by the green of Knuckles' socks. Boot up the 1993 prototype version of Sonic 3, or take a look at some pre-release screenshots, and you'll see green-socked Knuckles, but you'll also notice the yellow HUD is now green. The developers effectively had to make a choice between recoloring the HUD every time Knuckles appeared on screen, or altering Knuckles' sock colour. The yellow socks, then, were nothing more than a concession due to technical limitations. Knuckles' fur colour is a little more mysterious. Knuckles' cutscene palette includes one definitively more pink shade of red than his Player 1 palette. The general assumption had always been that Knuckles started life as a pink echidna, but after the release of Sonic 3 was altered to red. This theory unfortunately doesn't hold any water. Pre-release screenshots are fuzzy but appear to show Knuckles as red in earlier builds of the game. When the November 93 prototype version of Sonic 3 found its way onto the internet in late 2019, the theory took a further beating because Knuckles looked red, at least in the opening sequence anyway, where Knuckles has a completely different design. Takashi Yuda has said, speaking of Knuckles' fur colour, that the antagonist was originally planned to be green, but the decision was made to change him to red after some market research. No mention at all of pink Knuckles. Ultimately, the question as to why Knuckles started life as pink has never been answered. The way I see it, that leaves us with three possibilities. Either Knuckles' pink shade is a mistake, or Knuckles was intended to be slightly pinker at one stage in development but Sega flip-flopped on a decision multiple times, or the pink shade represents another concession, though a less obvious one. What I find really interesting is that the discrepancy between pink Knuckles and red Knuckles was never as prominent in the US and Japan as it was in Europe. The American box art for Sonic 3 didn't feature a full body shot of Knuckles, while the Japanese box art showed off the Knuckles we've all come to know and love with red fur and green socks. When Knuckles appeared outside of the game in the US, like in the Archie comic books, he was red with green socks right away. It was a totally different story in Europe. Sonic 3's box art featured Knuckles on the front, looking very distinctly pink and sporting a pair of buckles around his gloves. On the rear of the box you'll see a bigger version of the same render with yellow socks as well. Also note that weird smirk, an expression that somehow captures the cocky menace of early Knuckles. But there's more. The UK's Fleetway Sonic the Comic evidently took the European box art as gospel, because in his debut, Knuckles appeared pink with yellow socks. After a handful of appearances, Knuckles changed from pink to red. It's kind of funny because issue 35 and 36 have a very similar panel showing Knuckles, and the colour difference is pretty clear here. Although the colour of his fur would be corrected, his socks would remain yellow until the comic came to an end in 2002. A pink Knuckles mascot costume was also used here in the UK as part of Sega promotional events as late as 1996. Here's a Sonic the Comic ad showing off pink Knuckles in relation to the 1995 Sega Roadshow tour, and here is children's TV presenter Andy Peters at a Sega Channel promotional event in mid-1996. Anecdotally, I think Knuckles being depicted as so pink in the UK in the mid-90s led to a lot of us assuming Knuckles with his long hair and pink fur was actually a girl. Pink Knuckles wasn't just a UK thing. A 2-volume comic book entitled Sonic Adventures was published in France in 1994, along with a Sonic & Knuckles guidebook, and in all of these comics and books, Knuckles was, you guessed it, pink with yellow socks. Post-94 Knuckles was virtually always depicted as red outside of Europe, but the legacy of Pink Knuckles has cropped his head up every now and then. In Knuckles Chaotix, Knuckles has a pink hue, especially noticeable when contrasted with the deep red of Mighty the Armadillo's shell. In Sonic Advance, a pink Knuckles robot with yellow gloves and socks appears as a boss fight, which I'd like to think is a knowing nod to Knuckles' original palette. In Sonic Mania, Knuckles also has a pink tinge, something that I've actually seen people complain about, but I think it's another nod to this forgotten version of Knuckles. Returning again to that original Sonic 3 cutscene, there is one other strange thing to note. Knuckles is 2 pixels shorter in Sonic & Knuckles than in Sonic 3. Take a close look at Knuckles' Sonic 3 sprite sheet and you'll notice that one of the frames of his running animation contains a portion of Sonic's tan belly. Evidently Sega created Knuckles' sprites by drawing over Sonic's but left this in by mistake. This was corrected in Sonic & Knuckles, except some parts of the game where Knuckles is running vertically, and in the process Knuckles' centre of gravity was lowered. I've seen a lot of discussion about Sonic's American redesign in 1991, leading to the term American Sonic. I'd like to put forward the term European Knuckles to describe this pink version of Knuckles. What do you think? To be fair, Red Knuckles is cool too. Knuckles has had a few other strange colour hiccups since Sonic & Knuckles, but has been confidently red in pretty much every game since Sonic R, and that makes perfect sense. The rise to prominence of Amy Rose in Sonic R and Sonic Adventure already gives Sonic a pink buddy, and Red Knuckles does admittedly work really well in the Sonic & Knuckles logo, but there's a nostalgic part of me that misses European Knuckles. The pink fur, the yellow socks, the glove straps, the weird smirk, the chuckling. and the hip-hop drum beat. Knuckles was so awesome. But I guess he still is.